Let me ask you something. How do Arsenal work into this North London derby? With a team like Spurs, who are one of the best in terms of tackling, they've got the best tackling numbers in the league, but also one of the shakiest defense in the Premier League. How do we approach a North London derby with Gabriel out, Calafiori a doubt, and Spurs are coming in with height, chaos, and a game plan for Arsenal? And why? Somebody please explain why PGMOL MOL would give a referee that has given 8 red cards to Arsenal, the most of any other team in the Premier League, 98 yellow cards in a game that has a lot of tension, has a lot of controversy. What is going on? And would this game be the first game where we actually see Eze, Gyökeres, and perhaps maybe Odegaard starting as Arsenal begin to get players back from injury? This derby is massive. This derby is everything, guys. Let's get into our Arsenal versus Tottenham Gunner Pavilion preview. Okay, let's start with Arsenal because context matters, right? Before we talk of war. Here's the thing. Arsenal may feel a little uneven emotionally after that Sunderland game. We've talked about it. I think performance-wise, Arsenal did great. It was just the outcome that wasn't exactly what was desired, especially with Man City doing what they did against Liverpool. But let's put context into our recent form. We won 2-0 against Burnley, controlled, no drama. Slavia Prague away in the Champions League, 3-0. We rotated, but was still dominant. We also won against Fulham. We won against Crystal Palace. And then, of course, that draw against Sunderland. But everything Arteta is building is towards consistency. If you look at our defensive numbers, obviously everyone knows this. You know, we're one of the best teams, the best team in the Premier League in terms of our defensive stats. And up until the Sunderland game, we had only considered 3 goals. Now we've considered 5, but still right up there in terms of goals that we considered, considering the amount of games that we've played. We're second in XG against, expected goals against, and we have the fewest big chances conceded, and we got the most clean sheet in all competitions. So that's got to count for something. These are all elite numbers. Let me know in the comment section, guys. Do you think that this Arsenal's defensive unit is one of the best that we've ever taken into a North London derby, or even better? Let me know in the comment section. But the key for me in this derby, because derby doesn't care about stats, and we all know this. A derby pulls on weaknesses, insecurities, those little fears that you have in a game. And this is where Tottenham come in. Now, when I look at Spurs in terms of what they do well and how they're going to be coming into this game, Tottenham have got a very weird, sort of up and down, season so far. They're both underrated and overrated at the same time, if that even makes sense. If you look at their stats, right, I was just looking at a couple of stats about Tottenham. They're actually first in tackles per 90 minutes. So you know that they're going to be aggressive. They have a top 4 defensive duel success rate. So it means that their 2 defenders are always winning most of the duels that they come into. They're 6th for goals conceded, which is kind of middle of the pack, but they're bottom half for clean sheets. They do force a lot of turnovers, and they create a lot of chances from chaos and turnovers, right? So what does that actually mean is that they don't defend well as a unit. They defend well as individuals. If you look at Porro, if you look at Van der Ven, Porro is a player that you can defend. You can actually dribble past him as well, especially if you target the spaces between him and the other defensive players. They love chaos. They want the play to be broken up, and they want the games to be more stretched. Nothing organized, more stretched. And this is where they actually thrive, because when you look at the numbers, they seem to transition very well and get to the box when they have turnovers. And this is why this game is going to be very dangerous for us, Arsenal, because we need to control tempo. We need to control the degree of chaos in this game. But let's talk about availability, because this is going to be very, very important in this game, both for Arsenal, but also for Spurs. For Spurs, most likely you're going to have Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, and Spence will probably play in that back four. Paulina, Bentancur, and Javi Simmons I expect to play in the midfield. And then we expect Kudos to return and play in the attack, either with Brennan Johnson or Odegaard. I might see a scenario where Odegaard actually starts, and then Richarlison. Now, we saw that Sarr got a little bit injured in that Brazil game at the Emirates, which was an unfortunate game from an Arsenal perspective. I'm going to come into that. So he's probably unlikely to play this game. But I don't know the degree and severity of his injuries. I'm recording this a little bit early before we start knowing what the teams actually will look like. So potentially by the time we get to the weekend, there might be more good news for Sarr from a Spurs perspective. But this is not the same Tottenham or 2023. Um, Thomas Frank is a very good manager. He's going to have them organized. He's going to have them with a game plan. Remember our games against Brentford. They were always very, very difficult games, no matter when we played Brentford at any point in the season. And the Thomas Frank team has been known to cause a lot of problems for Arsenal. The team is bigger, they're stronger, and they're more direct. A bit less technical, but they are far more physical. So this is going to be a very similar game in terms of physicality, like the game that we had against Sunderland. And speaking of decisions that make zero sense, let's talk about the biggest decision of all, the biggest elephant in the room, the Michael Oliver problem. You cannot talk about this derby without talking about the referee. And if you look at the stats, this is not about conspiracies, it's about a pattern. Arsenal players have been sent up by Oliver 8 times. Oliver has given 98 yellow cards to Arsenal in 54 games that he's refereed. It's really, really baffling that the PGMOL have chosen this game after 10 months to welcome Michael Oliver back to an Arsenal game. Let's talk about the things that he's done in the past. Remember the game against Man City, sending off Trossard. Let's not forget the Wolves game where he mistakenly sent off Lewis Kelly, or another Wolves game that he actually sent off Martinelli for 2 yellow cards. We don't forget that game that even though we won at the Emirates against Man City, where Kovacic should have had 2 red cards in that game, but he didn't. And of course, Howard Webb defended him as well. So to choose Michael Oliver to be the referee for this game, it's reckless. I think it's tone deaf. I think it's setting the PGMOL for a lot of problems. And maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't care about the potential outcome that a decision that Michael Oliver might create in this game, because you know what? They can always explain it away. And especially a game like this, there are probably going to be less people, taking the side of Arsenal. So this game, this referee actually reminds me of something that one of the best coaches in NFL, said a long time ago. Jimmy Johnson, he was a coach for the Dallas Cowboys who won Super Bowls back in the 90s. And he always gave this talk to his players. And he used to say that we're going into this game and the referees are going to do something that will cost us this game. Now, your job is to play better than the refs. So Arsenal players have got to, take all of this aside and let us as the fans, we're going to make all the noise, but they have to silence in their minds every noise from outside. They cannot go into this game with any sort of context that Michael Oliver will be doing something that will be against Arsenal. We need to focus and win this game and not allow decisions by Michael Oliver to influence the outcome of this game. So that means that we've got to score early, we've got to score goals as soon as we can to settle the nerves and take things away from Michael Oliver. You don't want to be going into this game 0-0, approaching 10 minutes to the end, 80-something minute, because the unpredictability can happen in this game. So it's really, really important that Arsenal players are really, really focused. And the worst part is Michael Oliver's style directly impacts the biggest tactical zone of this match, which is what we're going to get into. So let's talk about tactics for this game. Midfield, I think this is where the game is going to be decided. Spurs are going to pack that midfield with players who are elite in terms of winning the ball. Paulina is very, very good at this. Bentancur controls tempo, very physical as well. And Xavi Simons is going to be the ball carrier. It's going to be the player that's going to take the ball and progress into the final third, especially in those transitions. But I think the real weakness for Spurs here, according to Opta, is the fact that Spurs are around 18 in possession retention under pressure. So there's places where we can exploit. And they're top 5 in turnovers conceded in a final third. So this is where Zubimendi is very, very important. He's going to be key to everything. So check out my video about Zubimendi, where I talked about why he's very, very important for this Mikel Arteta system and also for Arsenal. This is why Arteta brought him for games like this. So guys, tell me your midfield three. Who starts for you? Trossard, Odegaard, if Odegaard is fit enough for a cameo, would you start Merino in this game or would you continue with Eze? Let me know what you think in the comment section. The second thing for me about the tactics is going to be about the height. Now, Spurs are coming into this game with a lot of tall players, and I don't kid you. Romero is 6'1", Van de Ven 6'4", Richarlison is 6'2", and Paulina is 6'3". And Arsenal are missing Gabriel. So set pieces, corners, aerial threats is going to be something that we're going to have to manage. I feel that we've got the resources to deal with it. But this is massive for Arsenal, really, really massive. That's why we have to play this game in our own terms and so that we don't have to, be worried about the height of Spurs. And I think this is also where Mikel Arteta has a decision to make when we think about, the actual teams that we're going to look at. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. And the subject of wide areas brings me to my next thing with regards to tactics. I'm going to single out a player here for Spurs, and that's Porro. He's very good in terms of progressive passes, but he's among the most that gets dribbled against in all the top 10 clubs. And this is where, the likes of Eze can actually make his mark in this game if he plays. We must isolate Porro as much as possible, and we must force 1v1 against him because I think we're going to get some joy here. Meanwhile, Jet Spence, who's probably going to play in this game, has handled Saka relatively well in the past. He's got pace, he's got athleticism, and he's probably got the posture to be able to keep up with Saka. But you know that Saka is going to get 2 or 3 chances in the game that is going to go past Spence, and that's where Saka has to be clinical. I already think that he's going to be very important in this game. He always steps up in the big games. No one bigger than against Spurs. So I know that he's going to be very, very ready and he's going to bring his A game into this. But Spurs are going to plan to overcome it towards Saka. So you're going to see a lot of double up or triple up against Saka. So it's going to leave space for other players, and those players have got to take advantage of it. We're talking about Uran Timber, who sometimes, takes advantage of that to drop into an even more advanced positions into that final third. He needs to finish those chances when he gets there. A couple of times in the Liverpool game, you saw him breaking into that final third. I remember there was a particular sequence of motion, broke into the final third, took a shot, but was deflected away by Van Dijk. The other thing for me is going to be transitions. Transitions is going to be interesting in this game. Spurs are top 3 for direct attacks, and they are top 5 for attacks that are ending in the box after turnover. So Arsenal cannot lose the ball carelessly. Zubimendi and Rice must control that tempo. It's so critical. This is where, elite versus chaos is really going to play into this game. So how does Arteta line up for this game? What kind of players do we think will do the job against Spurs? Let's get into it, guys. My predicted 11 for this game: the back four, Raya in goal, Timber on the right-hand side. Saliba and Mosquera, two central back pairing. Got physicality, composure, and I think Mosquera is the best replacement for Gabriel. Left back, Mikel Arteta has got a decision to make. I talked about this earlier in terms of the aerial physicality and presence that Spurs are going to bring into this team. Now, if Calafiori is 60% or 70%, I can see a scenario where Mikel Arteta actually starts with Calafiori, looking to bring MLS into the game at some point in the future. And then you've got Zubimendi and Rice in that midfield. And then I think Trossard is going to start this game. Think this game might come a little bit too early for Odegaard. Maybe he might be on the bench to come in and make changes to things. But I don't think that you want him to start this game, especially with his recent record with injuries, especially immediately after coming back. I think there's going to be some cautiousness from Mikel Arteta. So I think that Trossard will start this game. And then it's going to be Eze, it's going to be Saka, and then potentially Gyökeres. I'm hoping that Gyökeres starts this game because this is the front line for me that can break Spurs. The midfield that can dominate, and the defense that can hold up despite what Thomas Frank's game plan would be for Arsenal. Now, here's the part you've been waiting for, guys, the prediction. And I've gone back and forth, on this all week. And I think I'm going to call it right now. I think we return back to our defensive solidity, not conceding chances as well. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 to Arsenal. I think this is the lineup that I'm going with. I wouldn't be surprised if we hit Spurs with 3 goals, but 2-0 gives a little bit of respect to the opposition. And guys, drop your predictions in the comment section. I want to see the most confident ones, and the most anxious ones, who are going for a 1-0, 2-1, 3-1, 3-2, whatever your scores are, put them in the comment section. And that is the Pavilion Preview, guys. This derby feels massive, emotionally, tactically, historically. And then, of course, we've got all the reaction coming after this game. Game is on Sunday. So it's going to be tricky for a lot of us, and we really want that victory. But, of course, we're going to have the debrief, win, lose, or draw, guys, as we always do, 3 ups and 3 downs in the Pavilion. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this one with at least one Spurs fan who needs emotional damage right now. We are all in this together, guys, for this North London derby. Come on, you Arsenal. I'll see you at the next Pavilion podcast.